As we saw in chapter 1, these 4 Jews have been a part of a 3-year training program where they are steeped in the literature and language of Babylon in order to become wise and understanding and serve the king. The process is similar to what we read in Esther, where the king is on the hunt for a new and hopefully more obedient wife. A selection of women underwent a 1-year beauty program, and from this group the king selected Esther. But as Mackie noted in yesterday's video, Daniel is also similar to Joseph's story in Genesis. There in chapter 39, it is said 3 times that God was with Joseph and prospered him. In Daniel 1:17, there is also a note that God gave knowledge and skill in every aspect of wisdom and literature to these 4 men, so that we know that God is behind their success. But to Daniel is given the greater portion, and in this he is particularly like Joseph. Daniel has insight into visions and dreams. Chapter 2 of Daniel is the first demonstration of this gift. The king has had a dream which has left him troubled. This happens repeatedly in Daniel, even to Daniel himself. It is so troubling and yet so obviously significant that the king wants to be sure of the answer he gets from his courtiers. He could try and ignore it, but this dream really meant something. If the gods are trying to tell him something important, it is crucial that the interpretation is accurate. The king summons the magicians, the enchanters, and the sorcerers. The king is clearly worried because he has summoned everyone who stands a chance of solving the mystery. But all this skill, knowledge, and tradition will amount to naught. What the king needed was one man to whom God had revealed the mystery which he had first sent the king in his sleep. For some reason, Daniel and his friends are not among those whom the king called, yet are under the same threat of execution afterwards. The king expresses his need for a dream to be interpreted. The courtiers reply with confidence, "Tell us your dream, and we will reveal its interpretation." The masters of the occult had resources to aid them in their work. A dream book, the sort which the Egyptians and Babylonians compiled, would be consulted to explain the imagery or events, if the dream was not by itself obvious to someone who was creative and sensitive, as you would need to be in such a profession. These resources, however, were useless for the task the king then sets them, which is to relate, first of all, the dream. If you can reveal the dream, you can reveal its true meaning, is the king's frightening logic. The courtiers are appalled and blurt out what the king suspected. This is impossible. A moment ago they had assured him, "We will reveal it," but now they say there is no one on earth who can reveal what the king demands. Interestingly, Daniel will say the same thing to the king later on. There is indeed no one who can reveal this mystery, but there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He is the revealer of mysteries, and he has disclosed what will happen at the end of days. This mystery was given to the king, installed in his head like an app. Daniel is very wise and humble in his wording. The transaction that he is now involved in is the most serious and extreme. He is not just in court circles, but where the heavenly court and the earthly court intersect. The communication is nothing to do with him. It was from the revealer to the king personally, and is for the king's benefit. For his part, Daniel has only been given the necessary knowledge to solve the king's problem, and it is certainly not because Daniel is in any way worthy. Daniel therefore acts like a perfect servant of both God and king. But whatever God has planned specifically for the king, this episode is designed to exalt Daniel, and in so doing, exalt the God Daniel serves. The magicians and sorcerers had their resources and books and skills, but Daniel just gathers his friends and prays. The mystery is revealed by God to Daniel in a dream. He tells the king that this is the God of heaven, which is a title for God in the Old Testament that mainly occurs in the later books like Chronicles, Ezra and Nehemiah. It was the titles the Persians recognized as the God of Israel, which Cyrus uses at the beginning of Ezra. The interpretation which Daniel gives probably confirms something of what the king fears. He has seen a statue collapse and something replace it. There is going to be some massive political reordering. But who, what, and when? Daniel says it relates to the end of days, meaning not the end of history, but a later time of decisive change. The head is Babylon, which Daniel reveals. Daniel is in the court of kings, earthly and celestial. This earthly king is rightly called by Daniel the King of Kings, because that is literally what he is. But he also affirms that this was given him by the King of the Kings, the God of heaven. I can't imagine this would have been any offence to Nebuchadnezzar. It was obvious that the gods were behind his success. But Daniel narrows it down to just one, the one who gave him the mystery, the same one who has given the interpretation to this young Jew. Daniel, unfortunately, does not identify for us the remaining kingdoms, which are inferior, symbolized by the decreasing quality of the materials. The silver part is possibly Media, the bronze Persia, and the iron and clay Greece. After Alexander the Great conquered the world, he died young and his kingdom was split. There will be more prophecies about him later in the book. But another view is that the four-kingdom scheme is actually Babylon, Media, Persia together as the silver, then Greece as the bronze, and finally the iron-clay mix is Rome. The weakness implied in the mix of materials may mean that the empire was only strong in certain places, but weak in others. Or it could mean that only it seemed strong, but actually had an underlying fragility. My feeling is that the first interpretation is correct, that the fourth kingdom is Greece, but I am not sure. The stone which destroys the whole lot and becomes an everlasting mountain is cut not by human hands, and is the kingdom which Jesus proclaimed and inaugurated. We will see this four-kingdom scheme again in the vision in chapter 7, where instead of a statue made of different things, we will be shown four hybrid beasts, followed by a judgment and the setting up of an everlasting kingdom for the people of the Most High.